So you tested positive for EPO. Why did you take EPO?
I took an anemia medication called Procrit, which the main ingredient was erythropoietin.
What's up guys, Derek, moreplates.com. Today we're going to be talking about the CEO of EPO. TJ Dillashaw is returning to the UFC after a 2-year ban, and a lot of people have been asking me about my opinions on it. And notably, there was a post I was tagged in on Twitter. Derek, where are you, bro? We need your natty or not mine. TJ Dillashaw returns to the UFC this weekend after a 2-year ban for EPO. Does he still have an advantage? What else did he do? Former champ and commentator Mike Bisping breaks it down here. So, gonna be reacting to Bisping, see if it lines up with my opinions or not, and give my kind of 2 cents on top of it as well.
Okay, first of all, just want to say I made this YouTube channel about, 7, 8 years ago. Never used it at all. And just recently, you might have saw I did a video and it did very well. A lot of people interacted. A lot of people subscribed and left a lot of very nice comments. So thank you very much. But if you haven't subscribed, subscribe down below because I'm going to start doing a few of these videos. Got a bit of free time on my hands these days. But anyway, as I say, thank you very much. The response was very, very encouraging and I really, really appreciate it. Now, this weekend, the big fight that's happening at the Apex in Las Vegas in the UFC is TJ Dillashaw returning and taking on Corey Sandhagen. It's a massive fight in the bantamweight division. Now, if you know the story, you know what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about TJ Dillashaw returning after a 2-year suspension due to steroids. Failed a USADA test. It was a product, or a steroid, should I say, called EPO.
Okay, so off the bat, Bisping probably should not be talking about this subject when he doesn't even know the difference between anabolic steroids and recombinant human erythropoietin.
Don't ask me what that stands for. I have no idea. But what I do know is that it gives you tremendous cardio capabilities. It allows you to push through the pain barrier. When you're in a fight, everybody gets tired. That's why I talk about cardio being so important. Listen, you got 2 men that are equally skilled, equally strong, whatever. But when you get tired, that's when everything goes out the window, right? You start getting sloppy, you start making mistakes, you start wanting to quit.
Like, how many fighters have we seen fall apart in the final rounds who otherwise are fucking savages in the first couple rounds? Guys like Paulo Costa, guys like even Conor McGregor. Those fighters are so fucking dangerous in round 1, but it's like every round thereafter they're like a fraction of the danger. Like, obviously they're still dangerous as fuck, but you know what I mean? Like, cardio is fucking massive in the UFC to a point where if you're on exogenous EPO and the opponent isn't, it's a fucking massive disparity in who has a competitive advantage.
So that's why when I was fighting, I put such a massive emphasis on the cardio ability. I would run all the time. I would hit pads with intensity. I would spar, to a very, very high.
It's an interesting shirt. It's like a fucking collared t-shirt with a zipper going all the way down to his nipples. What the fuck?
High degree and a high intensity as well. Try not to get injured, of course, but still that's what you've got to do. You've got to train the way you're going to fight. And apparently this product, EPO, or the steroid EPO, pardon me.
Not a steroid.
Allows you to have insane cardiovascular abilities.
Okay, so insane, within reason. There is a biological passport that's going to pick up aberrations that are pushing you into super physiological territory. But yeah, obviously you can get a significant advantage against other guys, and especially when you're aggressively weight cutting, the effect that is going to have on your hematology, obviously advantageous to be able to manually manipulate your hematology profile with exogenous EPO, whereas other individuals are not gonna have that luxury, or, may have the luxury and just haven't been caught.
That's a massive advantage. Now listen, I don't know much about it, but I'm sure it gives you other benefits as well, potentially in the recovery spectrum as well. And
yeah, mainly neurogenesis, metabolic, cardiovascular, and protection. I don't know, there's a lot of different aspects that could be advantageous of using EPO. Obviously, the main one that most people are familiar with is its effect on its, endurance boosting capabilities, and that's mainly what it's used for. Very infrequently have I heard of somebody using it just for cognition. Very infrequently have I heard of somebody using it just for its hepatoprotective effects or anything like that. Those are kind of niche, more I don't know, like researcher type things that it's being used for and being evaluated for, rather than in a sports performance setting. Like, it's not going to build a bunch of muscle. It's not going to agonize the androgen receptor and cause fucking insane amounts of muscle protein synthesis above baseline. It mainly is going to work by significantly elevating oxygen carrying capacity or maintaining it at a level that you otherwise would not be able to maintain during aggressive weight cutting / training / whatever. Like with Dillashaw, he mentioned how he was in an aggressive weight cut and he was like becoming essentially anemic. So that's why he busted it out. But again, is that the only time he busted it out, or is that just his fucking excuse?
Again, massively important. If you train hard and you can recover better, then the next day you can get up and do it all over again. Whereas somebody that's not cheating, somebody that doesn't have steroids in their system, they get out of bed, they're tired, they're sore, they don't want to go train. And even if they do train, they don't push as hard. That's why steroids give you such an advantage. Of course, you've got to be a skilled fighter. You've got to have the wrestling, the jiu-jitsu, the striking ability. You've got to have the bravery to step into an octagon in the first place. So steroids alone don't make you win fights, but they certainly help. And having the cardio advantage, well, it's huge. Trust me, it's huge. I remember a kickboxing fight that I had, 8 rounds. It was about, 15 years ago. And it was an 8-round title fight. I hadn't been near a gym at all. But my old coach, Alan Clarkin from the Black Knights, he calls me up. He says, Mike, got a fight for you. It's a British title fight next weekend. Have you been training? I was young and dumb. I was about 17. I said, yeah, sure. I've been training. No problem. I was about 20, actually, looking back. I said, yeah, sure. So I went and did the fight. Because all my fights, up until that point, I was able to knock them out in the first round. The fight started, I went at the guy really hard, and for 4 rounds, I beat the crap out of him. But guess what? He was still there, right? And for those next 4 rounds, I got my ass kicked. And let me tell you, it is the loneliest place in the world to be in a ring, not a team environment. It's one-on-one with the referee. You can't hide, you can't hang back, you can't not decide to go for the ball. You're in there. And if you don't fight, your opponent's going to beat the crap out of you. So you have no choice but to fight. And then once you get tired, it doesn't matter how good you are. It does not matter how good you are. Once you're tired, it's all out the window. So it's such an important factor in preparing for a fight. That's why I've got no knees right now, because I run them off. I literally ran as much as possible. Of course, I did everything else as well to prepare for a fight. But the cardio was always a big one. Now, I'm against steroids. In a big way. If you know my story, then you know that I can pop this eyeball out right now. I fought a guy, Vitor Belfort. Most people probably know who he is. I don't think much of him. He was on testosterone replacement therapy. Now, granted, he was a guy that was well known.
Now, was it actually TRT though? Not actually therapeutic replacement, really.
For his steroid use, he failed multiple tests, I do believe. I might be getting that wrong, but certainly 1, if not 2. And he had a reputation for it. And he was on testosterone replacement therapy. And that was allowed. It was a loophole through the commission. But soon enough, after a while, they realized, hold on, that's just bullshit. People were saying, if I don't have TRT, if I don't have testosterone replacement therapy, I'm going to die, so I have to take it. Well, guess what? Eventually, the commissions came to their senses. They outlawed TRT. And those same guys continue to fight.
Yeah, so like a lot of people don't realize like the kind of fuckery that was going on to manipulate the system and get testosterone prescriptions and basically fight on gear, perpetually maintaining a chronically elevated testosterone level, like in super physiological territory essentially, because if they didn't get it, they'd die, of course, which is obviously horseshit. But and yeah, some cases like people actually need TRT. I'm not saying that you wouldn't, especially when you're in a sport where you're getting your fucking head crushed in every single fight, but it doesn't mean that you have to be like, even if you're at therapeutic replacement levels, you're still getting an advantage in a performance context over the next guy because of the chronically elevated level, regardless if you're fucking weight cutting, regardless if you had a bad sleep, regardless of how hard you trained, your testosterone level stays the exact fucking same when you're on an exogenous TRT, whereas when you're natural, boom, that shit's going in the fucking gutter. And you have a disproportionate spike in free testosterone due to the lowering of SHBG when you use exogenous androgens. So it's not even fucking close to equal. Even when you like compare it total T to total T, an equivalent like 700 nanogram per deciliter guy who's on TRT versus a 700 natural, The guy who's 700 on TRT has an advantage too, even if it's actual legitimate therapeutic replacement. So yeah, that is definitely good that they plugged up that loophole, because it was definitely being abused, like way above and beyond even that. Like it was in like, you know, guys walking around in the high thousands and shit. Like it was just like nonsensical.
Okay, as I say, I got caught with a head kick of Vitor Belfort, and you know, I can pop this eyeball out. I'm blind in one eye for quite some time before I retired, and of course, I'll be blind for the rest of my life. What you got to realize in this sport, in any combat sport, we're not trying to put a ball in a basket. We're not trying to kick a ball into the back of the net. We're trying to knock out our opponent. We're trying to inflict damage. You can dress it up however you want. You can say, oh, it's so technical, it's martial arts, it's discipline, it's respect. And it is to a certain degree. But the end goal is to render your man unconscious. The end goal is to choke him out, put him to sleep in front of the entire world, or inflict so much pain on another human being that they have no choice but to tap, to give up in front of the world and give up on their hopes and dreams, okay? So it's a very, very serious business that we're taking part in. And anybody that chooses to do steroids, I have no respect for you. I really don't. I wonder how people can look at themselves in the mirror after they've gone out and won when they knew they cheated the system. Anyway, I'm going off the track a little bit. TJ Dillashaw, he served a 2-year suspension. And he came out and he owned up to it. And I got to say, I respect that. I do. Everybody knows my stance on steroids. But the fact that he came out and he owned up to it, he put his hand up, he said, yeah, I cheated. The pressure got to me, whatever it was. It's refreshing. It's refreshing to see. Most people make up some nonsense. They say it was some cream or a steroid, not a steroid, a supplement that they used or whatever. They come out with outlandish things to try and make up for it, rather than just saying, hey, I did it, you got me, you caught me. So I respect that, I do. Okay, he served his 2-year suspension. Okay, you may have different thoughts on that. Maybe you think he shouldn't be here, he should be banned for life, whatever that is. But that doesn't matter, because the punishment was dealt. It was a 2-year suspension, and he served that. So he comes back this weekend against Corey Sandhagen, as I said. And it's a massive fight. It really is. You know, I mean, this is a big one for the bantamweight division. Sandhagen, as we know, is a great knockout artist. Last time we saw him was a beautiful flying knee knockout over Frankie Edgar. And it wasn't just a flying knee where he just saw the opportunity and jumped in there and went for it. No, he sucked Frankie into it. He backed off, he circled to the side, and he knew Frankie would follow him. And then at that exact moment, launched into the air and knocked him out. Beautiful. Before that, Marlon Moraes, spinning wheel kick, put him to sleep. Again, phenomenal. So for TJ to come back after 2 years and take on this guy, you know, there's easier fights to have, easier comeback fights to have, to get back into the swing of things, to let the world know that you're still a contender. Way easier fights to do that with. So as I say, I do respect TJ Dillashaw for doing that. It's going to be a great fight this weekend. Can't wait to see it. I won't be calling that one. I'll be sat on my couch. I'll be watching it. I hope you enjoy it as well. But still, there you go. If you're fighting professionally, if you're fighting amateur, whatever it is, and you're taking steroids, then shame on you. But still, do me a favor, click the subscribe button below. And I know the page is looking a little amateurish right now, but we've got some animations coming, we've got some artwork coming. It's all in the works. But still, as I say, thanks for watching. Take care. All the best.
Okay, so good video by Bisping. I wasn't sure exactly what he was going to get into, but it's more so his opinion on not the pharmacology, but more so just, you know, his general stance on taking steroids in the UFC, which is, I guess, a good platform to kind of tangent off of into the discussion of TJ and his EPO use and should he be banned for life or whatever. Like, I'll be honest, there's definitely an argument to be had. Like, the guy cheated and he's in a sport where you're trying to fucking, like, literally kill the other fucking guy, basically. And if you have a significant performance enhancing advantage from exogenous drugs, like, you know, it definitely doesn't look too good. You know, there's definitely an argument to be had where it's like, why would you let this guy back? But again, I'm not saying this is my opinion or not, but on the other side of the token, play devil's advocate, how many guys are cheating that just aren't being caught? You know, is this his first time using EPO? Do you think this is the only time he's done this? Do you think this is the only drug he's done? Do you think he's the only one leveraging this kind of a strategy? Like, USADA is pretty tight. Don't get me wrong. They have definitely, you know, set a standard for high quality testing, the frequency, the randomization, the scrutiny. But again, they're even limited by resources too. They can't fucking get everything. And when they get a guy like TJ Dillashaw because of some aberration in his biological passport, subsequently leading them to think, oh, this justifies a, you know, more expensive, more elaborate EPO test, where you actually then dig into the urine itself with a very specific analytical method that is not just based off, basic detection through GCMS of, synthetic anabolic steroids and shit. Rather, actually pulling out the big guns to do, more expensive testing. They don't just carbon isotope ratio test everyone. They don't just HGH isoform differential immunoassay test everyone. They don't just check everyone for EPO. They have a biological passport in place to check for aberrations in longitudinal data of specific biomarkers like the hematology profile. And if something is off and looks a bit fucking iffy, then it warrants further exploration. But it's like they're not going to dig into it if they have no need to, because the longitudinal data looks like a normal, like natural, healthy production. So again, can you get away with it? Yeah, you fucking can. Current markers of the athlete blood passport do not flag microdose EPO doping. Like, this is still around. This is still something that drug testing federations are trying to figure out how to, wipe out completely. But there is still potential to fuck around. And this is just with microdosing recombinant EPO. We're not talking about true bioidenticals here that essentially are undetectable. We're talking about things that are very detectable here. And this is with literal microdosing of something that's synthetic. Like, we're talking about recombinant EPO, which is what TJ Dillashaw used. He didn't use a true bioidentical compound, something that would otherwise get even past the EPO test. Rather, he used something that would spike a red flag on an aberration in his hematology, subsequently leading to analyzing for isoforms in his urine to assess if it was endogenously produced EPO or not, and quickly finding out that it was indeed recombinant in nature. So this is where he talks about exactly what he used on an interview with Ariel Helwani almost a couple of years ago at this point. He talks about specifically what he took.
I took an anemia medication called Procrit, which the main ingredient was erythropoietin. It helps rebuild red blood cells. And when you become anemic, your red blood cells start to plummet, you lose energy. I was on a super strict, 1,600 calorie diet and working too hard. I pushed my body to the extreme, man. I mean, no excuses. I made the mistake of wanting to do something that hadn't been done. And,
yeah, so obviously if you're on a 1,600 calorie diet, training your fucking ass off, you can imagine what kind of hit that's going to have to your hematology, your oxygen carrying capacity. You're going to feel like dog shit. And that's what he elaborates on, how the Procrit, he introduced it and he quickly started to feel better. Or, that's what he mentioned, but it's actually, a relatively drawn out process that takes, takes like a couple of weeks for reticulocytes to spike up. And then subsequent to that, your red blood cell count, your hemoglobin then will spike up after that. And it's like a 4 to 6 week turnaround time where before you actually get up to baseline, where you can actually yield the benefits you want in a performance context. You're probably going to get some relief before that, but in general, like bringing your hematology back up into, where it should be, it's going to be, a month at least. Now, again, how strict are these aberrations in the biological passport? Like, clearly when you have fighters going into camp, being randomly tested year round, you have to keep in mind, this is even during their off season, they're being tested. So clearly, if they have a red blood cell count, a hemoglobin, a hematocrit, like at the, high normal, looking really super healthy and high performance, they have quite a bit of leeway, because they literally will weight cut so aggressively because they're allowed to in the UFC. They don't encourage it, I guess, but it's sort of like under the table encouraged, because a lot of athletes are trying to skirt into the lowest weight class possible and then, super compensate up to like fucking 20 to 30 pounds heavier than they are on weigh-in times, to then smoke the guy who's actually, try and beat a guy who's smaller than them, try and scooch their way into a weight class that they're not actually part of, literally almost kill themselves dehydrating and fucking cutting weight, and then super compensate up to like Paulo Costa. He gets down to like 185 and then super compensates to like fucking 210 on the day of the fight. Like, it's mental. So these guys, you can imagine what kind of hit that has to their hematology, and it has to be within a certain amount of range whereby they don't get flagged. Otherwise, you would have individuals getting flagged for subsequent EPO testing or like weird shit just by their testosterone levels going down, their hematology going down just by simple weight cutting. Like, the USADA is definitely used to seeing this. So there's definitely a lot of leeway from like high normal all the way down to like fucking borderline anemic. That range is not, giving red flags. So despite the fact that even just basic assessment on if somebody can get away with microdosing EPO is already found in the clinical literature. Above and beyond that, you have to keep in mind the longitudinal data of these guys reinforces a biological passport that has a leeway that's pretty significant. Otherwise, they would be getting red flags all the fucking time from these aggressive weight cuts. Like, why is your hematology so high at this time during a random test? And then a few months later, closer to the fight, it's like rock bottom. And then, shortly thereafter, it's back at the top. It's like, any logical person who understands the shit would be able to say, well, he's eating more food. He's not training his fucking ass off now, blah, blah, blah. But the fact remains is you have that leeway, and they can't really conclude that something is going on between that leeway that's fuckery. So if you're microdosing EPO to maintain higher in that leeway amount, you're not going to get flagged for EPO testing. So clearly whatever Dillashaw was doing was a bit out of the range that is, they deemed appropriate for his historical longitudinal data, and spiked the EPO test, or, they were tipped off by somebody, whatever it was, results in them testing for it, boom, they find it, and that's it. And that is the case for him. And as far as the Procrit in question, this is what he used. He has this shit right here, Procrit EPO Alpha. So this shit in particular is recombinant EPO. Like, it's called Procrit. There's like EPOgen, there's like different like commercial variations of this. But basically what you need to know is they're synthesized in Chinese hamster ovary cells. This is not a true bioidentical. This is something that is produced in a lab to treat for like EPO responsive anemia and shit like that. So the way it's detected, like, there's different tests actually. There's a few different ways to do it, but mainly the isoform composition is what is going to give a red flag that this is not truly indicative of a bioidentical endogenously produced EPO. Rather, it is coming from fucking Chinese hamster ovary cells. And yeah, it's like going to do the same action like EPO and induce the same hematology blood building effects. But at the end of the day, when you actually look at like the molecular weight and shit, it's different. Like, it's not identical to what you endogenously produce. So if you don't have good resources / access / pharmacology advisement, you end up with a highly detectable thing where you just gotta hope to fucking God that you stay within your longitudinal data range, so you don't get subsequently tested for EPO. And that's presumably what Dillashaw had been doing probably more than one time, and this time he got popped, and it was not a good outcome for him. The half-life of this stuff is so short, especially when you're administering, like, for example, if you're doing IV administration versus subcutaneous, like, there's different pharmacokinetic profiles as well. I'm sure he's leveraging the most ideal administration strategy to kind of minimize his exposure and get it out of his system as fast as possible. It's in and out pretty quick. And the blood building effects are staying within, a reasonable looking range, given how he was like self-inducing anemia basically. And then all that's left really is the fact that it's highly detectable via its, like, it has a pretty blatantly, obvious, like, this is, a 30.4 kilodalton variant of recombinant EPO. And this is, the isoforms in question. This is the ratios in question. We can analyze it based on this. And we find out, oh, look, it came from a fucking lab, from a goddamn hamster, Like, it's not like it is not easy to detect. It's just about, like, when you actually have it in your system and they know to look for it, it's just how often as you sat at looking for it. Not very often, to be honest, because most people are not spiking this, red flag that is going to justify further testing. And above and beyond that, the half-life is relatively, short. So if you get, you have 3 fucking strikes in a year for your whereabouts, if you're not where you are, and, or you claim you're not where you are, you end up skipping a test or whatever it is, and you can get away with it, however many times, and then, every year your, track record resets itself. You have quite a few fucking attempts where you can be like, okay, the shit's in and out of my system in this many hours, and it's going to be, this is the probability of me getting, tested at this time in this location. And if I, give my whereabouts here, but I'm not actually there, this is how many attempts I have left. And, you can kind of start to strategize as an athlete, and you can see where the justification might come in to really like start fucking around and trying to get away with stuff. Even when you're dealing with like non-bioidenticals, you're using, well, some people might classify this as bioidentical, but when you're dealing with recombinant variations of these kind of endogenously produced hormones, you might take the fucking risk, Like, even if you have so many, like, not get out of jail free cards, but you have some attempts to, hopefully not get randomly shown up, somebody testing you right when you happen to take it. Because again, this shit isn't something you need to dose on a daily basis either. Like, there's ways to definitely strategize. It might not be the ideal dosing schedule for blood building, but for getting around tests, like, there's definitely ways to manipulate the system And above and beyond that, you know you have this fucking pretty significant ratio. So, of longitudinal data. So, you know, as far as TJ Dillashaw, should he be allowed to fight? Like, how many other people in the UFC are doing this and how many just haven't been caught? I think there are a lot of, you know, decent amount that are totally clean. But again, are there people that are like TJ that are doing the same shit and just haven't been popped? Probably. Yeah, definitely is, bro. So is he, you know, should he be allowed to fight? I don't know. I'll leave that up to you guys. Like, the comments help the algorithms, so are much appreciated when you drop them down there. You let me know what you think. Like, obviously, he's going to have a lot of fucking scrutiny on him now, to the point where I highly doubt he's going to try EPO again. So, you know, and are his opponents using EPO? Is he going to have a competitive disadvantage now at this point because he can't, you know, he has way less leeway to fuck around now? Or, you know, his previous, you know, ethical decisions, should they, you know, weigh in on his ability to ever fight again, given the fact that he has fought guys when he's clearly fucking enhanced? You know, let me know. All the comments help the algorithm and are much appreciated. Like, subscribe, check out my blog, moreplacemoredates.com. Follow me on Instagram at moreplacemoredates, Facebook, Snapchat, not BitChute, Twitter, TikTok, Apple Podcasts. If you want to support the channel, you can check out anything I'm associated with in the video description below. My TRT clinic, it's all telemedicine from the comfort of your own home. Get high quality oversight from doctors who actually know how to interpret biomarkers and get even the right lab tests to interpret your health status and address any imbalances or deficiencies with the proper assays, with the proper sensitivity. Most people don't even understand this shit at the physician level, which is fucking mental, given the fact that a lot of these clinics are cookie cutter passing out scripts of testosterone, HCG, and anastrozole like candy, and they don't even know what the fuck it does half the time. And yeah, like, even knowing what kind of diagnostics to get to stay on top of, you know, cardiovascular health, to stay on top of neurological health, to stay on top of any kind of liver, hepatotoxicity, nephrotoxicity. Like, does your doctor know what the fuck, anything, any kind of interplay with these hormones and what kind of impact it may have above and beyond just the basic assessing your reference ranges and seeing like, oh, you're fucking high or low and your CBC and your metabolic panel and blah, blah, blah. Do they know what kind of, you know, cardiac imaging you should be getting? Do they know about ultrasounds of your organs? Do they know what kind of stuff you should be getting to stay on top of your shit if you're an enhanced athlete, especially? Because a lot of individuals, you know, who end up on TRT are individuals who've subjected themselves to suppressive compounds in the past and may otherwise be, I don't know, doing that in the future. Those individuals will need high quality oversight from an understanding doctor who is not going to be judgmental and is actually fucking intelligent, understands how this pharmacology actually plays in on your endocrine system, as well as all kind of organ systems in the body, whilst being mindful of, you know, all of your individual needs / goals / you know, quality of life, whatever it is that you're trying to pursue. And we also, you know, deal with naturals too. You know, it sounds a lot of drug talk right now, but individuals who are hoping to stay natural or just want to assess all kind of areas and avenues possible before going the TRT route, like, we get our markups on the high quality service and the doctor oversight from guys I've vetted myself that represent the same quality of information I put out on this channel, rather than markups on medications. So frankly, I don't really give a fuck if you end up on test. Neither do our doctors. We just care that you get high quality service, and we're known for being the clinic that goes above and beyond what all of the other clinics are doing in this country. So if you want to check that out, it is in the video description below, as well as anything else I'm associated with: Gorilla Mind, nootropic formulas, Gorilla Mode, pre-workout formulas I designed myself from scratch. The clothing I wear in some of my videos, for example, this shirt, you know, it's in the video description below with a coupon code. I recommend a diet model for building muscle and sports performance, and anything else I'm associated with. And notably too, you know, on the TRT front, the diet model hits all your micronutrient needs. A lot of individuals just have fucking shitty sleep hygiene, poor diet models. They could otherwise patch up a lot of pretty blatant deficiencies just by addressing their diet. And that is something we will touch on too in your consultations and whatnot. So anyways, thank you guys for watching. Talk to you soon.